Crossover Breakers releases on December 6th. Like so many deck build packs before it, this set introduces 3 new archetypes to a game that already has 10 times as many as it needs, all at predatorily inflated rarities that likely won't even see play until they get 3 new waves of support. That's the thing. They're good. They're good.
Some people really liked it, and some people really felt like Ryzeal was just going to be the best deck by far now.
Ryzeal and Maliss is going to completely warp the format, and it's not really exaggerated, I believe.
Ryzeal domination.
We invest and prepare for Ryzeal.
Most played deck Ryzeal by a very good margin in front of Maliss.
They're good. Ice Ryzeal is a light pyro monster that summons a Ryzeal from deck on normal and can special summon itself by pitching a card, but locks you to rank 4s. They all do that. They all have a built-in summon that locks you to rank 4s. That saves us like 30 seconds. Sword Ryzeal is a fire thunder that summons itself if you up a Ryzeal on field or in grave, and Search is a light pyro monster on summon. X, the everything Ryzeal, the home for free speech, mills an Xyz monster to summon itself, and Search is a fire thunder on summon as long as you cutting to the chase don't control Nibiru or Zeus. Node summons itself if you've got an Xyz on field or in grave, and can pitch a card to reborn a Ryzeal. Palm must be summoned by shuffling back a Ryzeal, only locks you to rank 4s while it's face up, and can send a level 4 from hand or deck to boost its attack during damage calc. Plug-in summons back a Ryzeal or Xyz from grave or banish, then attaches a Ryzeal from deck to an Xyz you control. Cross can shuffle back 2 names from grave to draw a card, and can quietly negate a resolving monster effect by detaching material from a Ryzeal you control, but locks you out of summoning Xyz monsters with the same name as ones you control while it's on the field. There's no way this is getting localized as Hole Thruster. I have no reason to write jokes about it being called Hole Thruster. But I really want to make jokes about it being called Hole Thruster. Plasma Hole pops face-ups up to the number of Ryzeal Xyz monsters you control, then attaches a Ryzeal from grave to a rank 4, and can banish itself from grave to Xyz summon using at least 1 Ryzeal you control. Duo Drive can attach a name from grave on summon, Shang Yings for each material under it, and can detach 2 from any of your Xyz monsters to search 2 Ryzeal cards. And Ryzeal Detonator requires Ryzeals, attaches any monster from grave on summon, can ding protect Xyz monsters once each turn, and each time your opponent activates a card or effect, can detach a material to pop a card on the field. This deck burst onto the scene in the OCG, claiming the top deck slot that Snake Eyes has been dominating for almost a year now, owing largely to the strength of Detonator, whose non-once per turn or even chain effect can pop a card every time your opponent so much as breathes. Under his watch, things like Snash can be killed off before they get value from their second effects, continuous and field spells practically cease to exist because chaining Detonator to kill them will make them resolve without effect, so things like Throne, Pain, and Deception are off the table. Because he can attach something from grave on summon, he'll always start with a minimum of 3 pops, with the potential to accrue more from plug-in and Plasma Hole. And anything that can threaten him can be dealt with either with his protection effect or Cross's negate. Building your Gundam unit is a simple process as well, since every single monster is a level 4 extender, and most of them are 1-card starters. Ice being a tour guide makes him pretty comfortably the best, especially since he doesn't even lock you to rank 4s yet, giving you a bit of room to incorporate things like Armored Xyz if you feel so inclined. But X and Sword, searching the opposite half of the archetype, and also some of the sprites and Helios monsters if you're interested, make them pathways to Duo Drive as well. Sword needs to be your normal summon if he's your starter, but X, the Everything app, the home for free speech, can be summoned at any point as long as there's an Xyz in your extra deck to mill. And that can either be used to get a Ryzeal engrave for Duo Drive to attach so that he'll have a material left over after detaching 2, or to mill Myriologic Aggregator, meaning that going second, you can chain block X's effect with Aggregator's negate, and going first, you can attach it to Detonator so that when he pops something, you can negate a random other card your opponent has lying around on the field as a little bonus. And since every monster is an extender, the deck has tons of capacity to play through Interruption. Even a second copy of Ice can help you play through your first one getting ashed. And that way, you can almost say that the second copy of Ice is like a completely different card from the first one, which makes playing Bonfire even more promising since it'll have 3 total functions. But having tons of ways to put bodies on board isn't your only way to play through hand traps. The deck can also make an early Rafflesia, so you can Gravedigger, negate Ash, Ogre, and Nib, all of which would otherwise disrupt your Duo Drive's double search. But that of course leaves out the possibility of getting impermed, which means it's time for some clown-ass shit. Since Plasma Hole is a whole normal trap card, Rafflesia can send it to copy its effect as long as you have a Ryzeal Xyz on board and your opponent has a target for you to pop. So if your opponent imperms your Duo Drive, you can copy Plasma Hole targeting the imperm, then chain the Plasma Hole in Graveyard to rank up, or I guess rank across, into full armored Utopic Ray Lancer by pitching a random spell or trap, thus dodging the imperm. I think all that leaves in terms of your opponent's stopping Duo Drive is like Purge, but Purge is on fraud watch after his little brother Impulse realized that the best deck was Dark Fire and made it out of the hood. And while we're on the topic, Ryzeal plays around Impulse very well since all of their other summons are built in aside from plugin. Let's talk about plugin for a second. See, that's the weave. I float the card on screen as an aside and then I start talking about it. It all comes together beautifully in the end. Plugin is a good search for duo drive alongside cross because it's both important for combo and RAF lines and can be set so that if detonator gets outed, you can bring it back with 2 materials. Or you could chain it to a monster effect to sneak a material onto a Ryzeal so that cross can negate. Cross! It's the weave. Obviously a good way to stop nib and a versatile disruption that gets to ignore chain blocking, and is good for recycling your resources and seeing some non-engine. If you lead with Dugaris, you can dig 3 cards deeper into your deck, which can be instrumental to seeing side deck blowouts. Also fun jank ideas to X the Everything app, the home for free speech, mill Rebarian Shark to stack a quick play rank up magic like Quick Chaos that you're guaranteed to draw off of cross. So you can end on Giant Hand, negate a monster effect, then tag into Red Hand, which gets a lot of grief for being a mandatory whole field negate, but looks a lot less garbage when you have full control of what point during your opponent's turn it hits the field. If you don't like that, there's also Ragna Zero and Ragnafinity, which are turned online by Duo Drive's Changing effect. But just like you can force the over 100 numbers onto your end board, so too do you have access to the full rank 4 toolbox that has only gotten better since the last time it was good when I was in high school. So you have access to Dweller for graveyard matchups and complex removal options like Light Dragon and Asophiel. And there's just so much more that can be said, like how the deck plays through Shifter so well by going Detonator Pass, that some lists even play Shifter because it hurts other decks so much more, to Plasma Hole's graveyard effect being able to jump scare Draco Future or Zeus. But we've got 2 more decks to talk about, and I've been rambling now for longer than I did about Fiendsmith, so for now, I'll leave you with this. This is Utopia support. Palm only locks you while he's face up on the field, so you can play a small package of Ice, X, and Palm to make you Topic Sage, get to Ascended, and then to make Utopia. This is what we've been fucking waiting for, baby. A 1-card combo at last. I'm so fucking hard right now. Oh, I got ashed. Pass. Kyoro Ryu-Ge Kaiba can shuffle itself back into the deck to search Ryu-Ge Realm Dino Domains, can summon itself from hand during a turn in which 2 or more cards have been destroyed, and can bottom Dino Domains to pop cards up to the number of types present on the field. Kairo Ryu-Ge Emva can pitch itself to search Sea Spires, can summon itself from grave during a turn in which 2 or more monsters were pitched or milled, and can bottom Sea Spires to reincarnate your opponent's hand. Genro Ryu-Ge Hakva can banish itself from hand to search Wormwinds, summons itself once 2 other monsters have been banished, and can bottom Wormwinds to search a Ryu-Ge card. Sosei Ryu-Ge Mistva is a pendulum ritual that can search a Ryu-Ge card, then shoot itself. Ritual summons itself from the extra deck when a monster is destroyed, then pops up to 2 cards you control, and places that many continuous spells from deck. Ryu-Ge Rising is a quick play Rota that can also put a Ryu-Ge pendulum from hand into the extra deck, and can banish itself and a Ryu-Ge monster from your graveyard to summon one with the same type from deck. Ryu-Ge Warzone takes a Dino, Sea Serpent, and Worm from deck, adds 1, mills 1, and banishes 1, but locks you into the Dragon quad type. And if Mistva is in your extra deck, can summon 1 of each from your deck, graveyard, and banished. All the continuous spells have a continuous effect, and also bestow a quick effect upon all Ryu-Ge pendulums and level 10 or higher monsters of the corresponding type. Dino Domains gives Ryu-Ge monsters 300, and the quick effect lets you bottom a continuous spell to negate a monster effect. Sea Spires gives Ryu-Ge's battle protection, and you can bottom a continuous to bounce a card. And Wormwinds is die 5 from field only during your opponent's turn, and lets you bottom a continuous to 0 out a monster on the field. Okay, let's pull out the bingo card. We got not a deck, Dino support out of left field, Floodgate bad, that's a big one. There's a lot to unravel about these cards, but the first thing, of course, is that there doesn't seem to be much merit to trying to play the deck in pure. I suppose you can build a somewhat decent board without incorporating another engine. Mistva and Rising Searching It both get you to Warzone, which gets a name in hand that can search its corresponding realm, and the other 2 names in position to be summoned by Warzone. And with your 3 level 10s on board, you can make Varadras while leaving Kaiva on board to use Domain's Monster Negate, or Emva to use the bounce. And when Varadras negates and then pops your opponent's monster, you can trigger Mistva by tributing the level 10, then popping Varadras in Warzone to place whichever realms you want for the matchup. Even repeating one you've already used, since the quick effects they give are only once per turn per monster the effect is given to. Since Mistva is the master of all 3 elements, he can instantly make himself into a monster negate and a bounce, or a battle trick that we keep around because he's also macro. Certainly a more formidable board than you'd expect, but there's a lot more room to go above that. For one thing, unless setting up Domain is really the best thing you can be doing with your search, it sort of behooves you to not get all 3 names with Warzone and leave one of them in deck where you can summon it from later. Instead, you can use the search, mill, or banish on any Worm, Dino, or Serp. So you can do things like search Oviraptor or Misk and Dino, or banish Kaido Terra, and set up a combo that lets you use Mistva to pop 2 babies for the most value of all time. Also nice that Domain will then also give its monster negate to Conductor, making him an even better end boss than he already was. But even though the quad type lock fits perfectly with Dino, since Xenometeorus has the same lock and all the Evolzars are dragons, Dino still doesn't have 1-card combos, so even with Warzone searching Oviraptor and setting up an Omni to protect its normal summon, you're still not quite all the way there on making a board. Sea Serpent is an even more complicated place for Ryu-Ge to work with, since they're tied up in a completely different different tri-type and mermail and shark right now that mostly blocks you from accomplishing anything even with a surge of Deep Sea Diva. So let's talk about worms. You can of course just search Moye to get Sword Soul stuff going, but she needs a reveal, so let's think even harder. One possibility is to search Barastos, which can summon itself by popping 2 of the Ryu-Ges, triggering Mistva to tribute the last one and pop Barastos, who will then float into Taya to start doing Sword Soul plays, which of course can include Protoss, who fits under the lock, as does his co-conspirator, and proving that maybe we should give the Duel Links limited list a chance, Reaper-Docus. Taya banishing Hakva and Protoss banishing 3 more will let you summon back the Hakva so you can still make Varadras in this line, reintroducing an Omni-Negate to Sword Soul that's been missing since the tragic passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. The last option that bears mentioning relies not on what the Ryu-Ge engine can search, but what can search it. As a Light Dragon ritual, Mistva is a search target for Saphira and Skull Guardian, and therefore a legitimate option to add on to the deck's 1-card combos. The options before it were either not proactive enough or didn't actually work in the 1-card combos. Meanwhile, searching Mistva gets you to Varadras, Domains, and Mistva set up an extra deck to pop out whenever one of your destructive interruptions goes off. The problem with this strategy, however, is the same as the problem for any other Ryu-Ge variant. You gotta play a fuck ton of bricks, not just to get the most value out of the engine, but kind of just to use it at all. Like, all 3 names are shitty draws, especially if you dare to cut down on bricks by not playing all 3 realms. The field spell can still search but can't summon unless Mistva is an extra, so it doesn't even successfully extend through Ash on Mistva. So there's some extremely flashy plays you can pull off with this engine, but under the hood you'll find a mess worse than my cable management. Also, there's a trap. I actually forgot the trap. I'm not bullshitting you right now. I actually forgot this existed. It's bad. It doesn't do anything. That's why I forgot it existed. It like draws a card. I don't even remember. I'm not looking at the text right now. I don't fucking know what this card did. I didn't write it. I didn't write it down anywhere. This card is bad. I don't fucking care. Like, this isn't a joke. I'm off the cuff. I forgot this card existed. I literally just remembered it off the top of my head right now. Not a good card. I don't know why they printed this. Maliss, you know what? No. That's not how you spell Maliss. You know what this word is? Maliss, which is what my dad used to call my mom, whose full name is Melissa. And no one else in my entire life has called my mom Maliss. My stepdad calls her M. Her family in Ohio calls her Missy. So the only memories I have of the word Maliss are memories of my parents arguing. So Konami, as punishment for bringing up mommy issues that I didn't even know I had, I will not play along with this one. Maliss P. Dormouse protects Maliss links that point to it from card effects, can banish a Maliss from deck once per turn, and when it's banished pays 3 to come back but locks you to links. White Rabbit protects you from battle damage when a Maliss link that points to it battles, sets a Maliss trap on summon, and also pays 3 to come back upon banishment. Chessy Cat turns Maliss links into Demock, can banish a Maliss card from hand to draw 2, and you get the idea. Maliss in Underground banishes a Maliss from hand, deck, or graveyard, gives Maliss links 3k while you have 3 traps banished, and makes your opponent unable to attack anything except Maliss links. The traps can all be activated the turn they're set by banishing a Maliss monster as cost. Maliss C TB11 summons a Maliss from deck or from extra deck if your opponent controls 3 or more cards, but it can't attack or activate its effects. GWC06 reborns a Maliss, then gains life if you control a link, and MTP07 searches a Maliss, then banishes a card on field if you control a link. Maliss Q Red Ransom switches the stats of your opponent's monsters while it points to something, searches a Maliss spell on summon, and when it's banished pays 900 to come back and banish any Cybers from deck. White Binder banishes 3 from grave on summon, sets a Maliss trap once each turn, and when it's banished pays 9 to come back and draw a card. And finally, Maliss Q Heart's Cryptor requires 3 monsters including a Maliss. Quick Effect shuffles back a banished Maliss card to banish a card on the field non-targeting and unnegatable, and upon being banished pays 9 to come back and double its attack. While many will scoff instantly at more Cyberse monsters that special summon themselves, this deck kind of operates on a very different axis than many Cyberse decks before it that makes it both feel quite different to play and also a lot stronger than most Cyberse combo decks before it. Rather than just endlessly summoning extenders from hand, Maliss combos are focused more on managing your 6 effects to return to the field upon banishment, a finite resource that you'll have to sequence in one of several different ways depending on your opener. The main way you'll get the ball rolling is with Dormouse, who can banish White Rabbit from deck to get an easy link 2 and any of the traps. In the OCG, they typically had to make SP here to banish the Dormouse and get the 3rd link material, but since importing the recent batch of TCG premieres, this step has been traded for Haggard Lizardos. This gets you the requisite material to make Red Ransom to pull from its expansive list of 1 search targets, and then banish it to activate your trap, triggering it to not only come back, but also pull from its rather modest list of 140 banished targets. This can be where you banish Chessie if you're trying to play the deck pure, but you'll reap more rewards if you go a bit further down the Cyberse rabbit hole, since Dotscaper is an honorary 7th Maliss, coming back when he's banished, but only once per duel. And this is the point where you do start to dip into a few of Cyberse's generic options like Link Decoder and Splash Mage to keep converting the materials you amass into future materials so that you continue to go plus even as you start linking off your 3s into smaller links with the goal of setting up Terahertz with GWC set, so that on your opponent's turn, you can bring back Whitebinder, who will bring Cryptor, Ransom, and White Rabbit along with her, to set up 2 banishes and follow up with Cryptor and MTP. Since Whitebinder draws each time she triggers to come back, and you can banish her on your opponent's turn as cost for the trap you set with Rabbit, you have Pot of Greed built right into your combo before even factoring in the possibility of weaving Heat Soul into your line, or using Chessie, who can banish a useless extra name from hand for a free draw too. Similarly, since they're all dark, you can get free draws from Allure, meaning you could easily build towards drawing 7 or 8 cards and bricking on Dotscaper. Other classic banishers you might want to try out include Gold Sarcophagus, which can start or extend your combos in a very similar way to Underground by banishing Dormouse from deck, but the line will be different than a normal Dormouse open since you'll have to make Splash Mage earlier. And while Chessie isn't a starter on her own, she and either of your other names after being Veilered can be paired with a Bestial to get to 3 link material and keep the party going. And yes, while we're on banishing hand traps, Shifter also fits into this deck pretty well, although drawing it will pretty drastically change your lines, and not all for the better. You can kiss Terahertz goodbye under Shifter lines, and the grand plan to set up a bunch of names in Grave to trigger with Whitebinder goes up in smoke. Similarly, Dominus Impulse is a pretty feasible option since all your shit's dark, but that screws over your Dotscaper interaction and lines that include Transcode or Firewall. Most Maliss players have cut both of these cards from the main at this point because the concessions you have to make when activating them aren't worth it for how little they do in the Ryzeal matchup, where Impulse can't hit all their built-in summons, and under Shifter they're comfortable making a big detonator and calling it a day. Meanwhile, Maliss has a glaring weakness to one particular hand trap, Artifact Lancia. Cut off from your main way of getting names on board and any ability to use their traps turn 1, most of the time the best a Maliss player can do at that point is try to extend through with Parallel Exceed and maybe get to Terahertz. Regardless, this deck mostly keeps up with Ryzeal in the OCG, occupying the 2nd place spot on most pie charts, completely reshaping the format after way too long in Snake Eye Fiend Link hell. Now, instead of Pyro monsters and Dark Link monsters, the format is dominated by... Oh. Thank you as always for watching. Been a weird year, huh? I mean, not just for me. Wanted to maybe take this time to reflect on what I've accomplished on this channel this year, but that was when I wrote this script back in October. Things are a little different now. I don't know what the coming years will be like. It's an awful lot I don't know. What else is new, eh? For the last 2.5 years, you've been coming to me for everything you need to know. And I'd like to think the most important lesson I've imparted on you is that you can't know everything. All you can do is keep preparing a little more each day and be ready for what comes next. I'm JackSLMS. I know everything because they pay me to. Thank you for watching. Good night. And good luck.